Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're joining us today because we have a major update to talk about. If you're someone who relies on Social Security, or you're just interested in the latest changes happening in U.S. policy, you're definitely going to want to stick around for this one. You probably heard that President Biden recently signed the Social Security Fairness Act into law. It's a huge deal, and it's going to affect millions of Americans, especially those in public service. So in today's video, we're going to break down exactly what this law means for you, what it changes, and what we can expect moving forward. Before we dive into the impact of this new law, let's first take a moment to understand what the Social Security Fairness Act is all about. The biggest problem this law is addressing has to do with something called the Windfall Elimination Provision, or WP for short. Now, the WP is a provision in the law that reduced the Social Security benefits of people who worked in both public sector jobs and private sector jobs. For example, let's say you worked for several years as a teacher, a firefighter, or a police officer, jobs that didn't pay into Social Security. But then, after leaving that job, you worked in the private sector where Social Security deductions were taken from your paycheck. Because of the WP, the Social Security Administration would drastically reduce the benefits you could receive based on the fact that you had been in a public service job, even if you had also contributed to Social Security during your time in the private sector. The result? People ended up with much smaller Social Security checks, which, as you can imagine, is incredibly unfair, especially for people who dedicated years of their lives to public service. That's where the Social Security Fairness Act comes in. With this new law, the WP is being reformed in a way that will significantly reduce the amount of money taken from public employees' Social Security benefits. Instead of seeing their benefits slashed by hundreds of dollars each month, these workers will now see a more reasonable adjustment, which means they'll get more of the Social Security benefits they rightfully earned. Not only does this fix an obvious inequality in the system, but it also helps ensure that public sector workers are treated fairly when it comes to their retirement benefits. This law was a long time coming, and many have fought for years to see these changes implemented. It's a major victory for people who've spent their careers serving our communities. But it doesn't stop there. Along with fixing the WP, the law also addresses another important issue, the Government Pension Offset, or GPO. The GPO previously reduced the spousal benefits someone could receive from Social Security if their spouse worked in the public sector and had a pension. So, for example, let's say you were married to a teacher who spent their career in public education and received a government pension. Under the old rules, you might have been eligible for Social Security spousal benefits, but that amount would be significantly reduced or even eliminated entirely because of the GPO. This meant that many spouses of public sector workers ended up with far less in Social Security benefits than they deserved. With the Social Security Fairness Act, the GPO is now being reformed. While it's not completely eliminated, it will no longer take as much out of spousal benefits. This is a big win for families who've been hit hard by the GPO over the years, and it's going to make a big difference in the lives of many retirees. Now that we understand what this law does, let's talk about why it's such a big deal. The changes to the WP and GPO are crucial because they address a major inequality in the Social Security system that disproportionately impacted workers in public service. For years, people who dedicated their careers to teaching, firefighting, law enforcement, and other public sector jobs were unfairly penalized when it came to their retirement benefits. These are workers who protect our communities, educate our children, and provide critical services, and yet they were being shortchanged when it came to Social Security. By fixing the WP and GPO, this new law finally levels the playing field. It ensures that public sector employees who contributed to Social Security are treated with fairness and respect, and it brings much-needed relief to retirees who had been impacted by the old provisions. But what happens next? What's the timeline for all of these changes? Well, while President Biden has signed the law into effect, it's going to take some time before we see the full impact. The Social Security Administration has a complex system to update, and these changes won't be implemented overnight. We're looking at a timeline of several months, possibly even over a year, before these reforms are fully reflected in people's social security checks. But here's the good news: over time, retirees and workers who were affected by the WEP and GPO will start to see a much more accurate reflection of what they've contributed to Social Security. Many of them could end up seeing an increase in their benefits, though the exact amount will depend on their specific work history. For those of you who are currently receiving Social Security benefits or are nearing retirement, this is definitely a time to stay informed. Keep an eye on your Social Security statements over the next year or so to make sure everything is up to date. And if you're someone who's been impacted by the WEP or GPO in the past, you should check your benefit amounts to see if any adjustments are made. These changes could mean a big difference in your monthly check, so it's important to stay on top of things and understand how the new law affects you. And it's not just about the here and now. The Social Security Fairness Act will also benefit future generations of public sector workers. If you're someone who's just starting out in your career, especially in a public service role, this law ensures that you won't face the same penalties that previous generations did. You'll be able to build your Social Security benefits more fairly, without worrying about the WEP and GPO coming in and slashing your retirement income. This is a huge relief for younger workers who are just beginning to plan for their futures. But even though this law is a step in the right direction, it's important to remember that this doesn't fix everything. Social Security is still facing significant challenges, and many experts are concerned about the long-term solvency of the program. While the Social Security Fairness Act addresses one major issue, it doesn't solve the bigger problems facing Social Security as a whole. We still need comprehensive reform to ensure that Social Security remains solvent for future generations, and that it continues to provide a reliable safety net for Americans who rely on it in their retirement. For now, though, this is a victory, and it's a testament to the power of advocacy and grassroots efforts. People have been pushing for changes to the WEP and GPO for years, and now, thanks to the efforts of those who fought for this reform, we're seeing real progress. Public sector workers can finally look forward to a fairer system, and that's something worth celebrating. So, what should you do now? If you're affected by these changes, the best thing you can do is stay informed. Make sure to regularly check your Social Security statements and be proactive about planning for your retirement. If you're unsure about how these changes affect you, it might be a good idea to talk to a financial advisor who can help you navigate these new rules and adjust your retirement plan accordingly. The law is going to take some time to fully roll out, but with the right planning, you can ensure that you're making the most of the benefits you deserve. Before we wrap up, I want to know your thoughts. How do you think this new law will affect you? Do you think more reforms are needed to improve Social Security? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.